I'm standing where, up until the late 1970s, an archway stood above a passage which led to White Hart Yard, and it was in one of these cottages in White Hart Yard that my family lived from around 1900 to the late 1920s. The 1911 census lists a family of 9 living in 4 rooms, my great-grandparents and 7 children, including my grandfather Edward and 2 sons from my great-grandfather's first marriage, and it's those 2 sons that I'm here today to talk about, as they were to both serve during the First World War. My great-grandfather and his first wife Mary were living just across the river in Laleham when, in 1888, Charles William Dyos was born, followed by Ernest Frederick Dyos in 1892. But sadly, Mary passed away when Ernest was just 2 years old, leaving Charles Sr. alone with the 2 boys until he remarried a few years later. G.W. Morton Boot Company occupied this shop in Guildford Street in the early 1900s, and it was here that Ernest worked as a shop assistant in his late teens. When he wasn't working, Ernest could be found playing football for Chertsey Wednesday FC, where he played for a number of seasons. At some point between 1912 and 1914, Ernest relocated to the Morton's branch in Tiverton, and at the outbreak of the First World War, he enlisted with the 8th Battalion Devonshire Regiment in September 1914. After months of training and preparation, Ernest and the 8th Devons left for France, arriving at Le Havre in July 1915. But it wasn't until September of that year that they were to go into battle. In the early hours of the 25th of September 1915, the 8th Devons went over the top at the start of the Battle of Loos. Ernest was killed on the first day of the battle at the age of 23, and like countless others, his body was never recovered. Back home, he was initially reported missing in the Surrey Herald on the 22nd of October, and later reported as presumed to be dead. My great aunt Millie, who passed away 20 years ago, always remembered the day that they received the news about Ernest. Lance Corporal Ernest Frederick Dyos is remembered at the Loos Memorial in France, in the Book of Remembrance at Exeter Cathedral, and here in his hometown of Chertsey. Ernest's older brother Charles did survive the war, but not unscathed. He had enlisted with the East Surreys at the Kingston Barracks in October 1914. He was stationed at training depots in England until December 1915, when, having achieved the rank of acting sergeant, was posted to France with the East Surreys, but returned to England in February 1916 due to a medical condition. Later that year, he was granted an honourable discharge from the army, deemed no longer fit for active service. After the war, Charles worked as a male nurse at Holloway Sanatorium, and later for individuals including the entrepreneur and philanthropist Thomas Lipton. Sadly, just 4 years after the death of his 5-year-old son, Charles passed away, leaving behind a wife and stepdaughter. Of the younger siblings, John was called up in 1918, but was still based in England when the war came to a close. My grandfather, Edward, joined the Royal Engineers in 1919 at the age of 16 and went on to serve during the Second World War. The youngest son, George, also served during the Second World War. Every year on Remembrance Sunday, I return to Chertsey to pay my respects to Ernest, and I hope that future generations will continue to do the same.